If you were in Glasgow last Saturday, you might have seen a very curious spectacle indeed, and that was an art show, so-called, staged there in the street. And the point of it was basically that milking cows for humans to drink or use is somehow gravely immoral. They're trying to make the point by saying it will be wrong if you milked human beings in the same sort of way. So the gist is this is not an equality issue, and an injustice needs to be tackled. I remember years ago there was someone from some animal rights group, and they were trying to claim that milking cows wasn't natural. So I actually wrote to a newspaper in reply. It was published, I think. I said, well, if milking cows is not natural, how come they've got huge handlebar-sized nipples that point down into a conveniently placed pail below them? And they published it, but that wasn't really obviously a serious point. But what I'm saying in this video is serious, because the animal liberation movement is animated by a belief in the oppressor-oppressed dichotomy within society. So any issue you look at, you see which side are the oppressors, which side are the oppressed, and you have to liberate the oppressors. So they would say, look, if you look through history, the poor were oppressed, or they say they still are, they need to be liberated. They say women were or are oppressed, they need to be liberated. Gay people were or are oppressed, they need to be liberated. Trans people probably are oppressed, needs to be liberated. Children are oppressed by adults, they need to be liberated. What's the next step? We need a new battle to fight. We need a new liberation campaign. What could it be? Well, animals. Okay, animals are oppressed by humans, so we need to liberate animals from human oppression. Now this show, it was by the Modern Art Gallery. I don't think it was actually to do with them. I don't know if any taxpayers' money went to it. I couldn't quite trace that back. It might well have been, but I couldn't actually find the smoking gun for that. But in this show, the Herald at least decided to cover it. I mean, here is the artist with another one of her masterpieces. I have to say it's a little beyond me understanding that, those squiggles there. So the artist, Stephanie Lane's decades-long artistic practice investigates the liminal space in which energy transforms from its metaphysical state into physical form. Now that sounds really profound, doesn't it? It's just gibberish masquerading as profundity. And let's see what else we've got about this. Right, well, one of the organisations supporting this show, I had a look at their website. It was very interesting. And this is one of the articles on it. It's about bovine fetal serum. We've got to help stop this. And you can see the picture here of an unborn cow with a needle being pushed into it. Let's read the text. To extract fetal bovine serum, calves are cut from their pregnant mothers at the slaughterhouse. After they've been ripped from their mother, the calf's heart is punctured with a long needle and the serum is withdrawn. The calf is then stabbed in the jugular and left to bleed out and die a painful death. How about that then? Pretty dramatic terminology to use about an unborn cow being killed. The people who are writing this, I wonder what their attitude to abortion is. I would be very, very surprised if they were pro-life. Noting the pregnant mothers there. Yeah, so it all sounds very dramatic, doesn't it? So we're supposed to be very, very concerned about unborn cows, whereas unborn humans, well, there doesn't seem to be quite the same level of concern from that organisation in any case. Right, this organisation also provides us with a very helpful glossary of terms, so we know the right terms to use and the terms not to use when talking about animal-related issues. Now, this is quite revealing. Listen to this. Right, first of all, they recommend we shouldn't use the term animals. We should say non-human animals or other animals. In other words, obviously implying that we're animals too. Or we should use the term non-human persons. In other words, your pet dog or a cow in a field or whatever is another person. This is breaking down the barrier. So animals, your pet dog and you, you're both animals. Your pet dog and you, you're both persons. It's just merging the boundary. Right, another term they say you shouldn't use is livestock, referring to farm animals. You should refer to them as exploited non-human animals. Okay, a zookeeper shouldn't be called a zookeeper. They should be called a captor. When a vet puts down an animal, a sick animal or an injured animal, they shouldn't refer to it as being put down. It should be referred to as being murdered. A pet, you shouldn't use the term pet. You should use the term non-human friend. So your pet is a friend. We'll come on to that later a bit more. Discipline and punishment with regard to a pet dog. That's not discipline or punishment. You shouldn't use those words. You should use the term abuse. Now, I find that quite interesting. Just to digress for a moment, I found over the last year or two, just the number of out of control, badly behaved, aggressive dogs just seems to have skyrocketed. But when I go for my runs around the place, it's so common now for a dog to come yapping after me, snapping at my heels, or I've been bitten on my hand once by a dog. A lady was walking past the dog and bit me on the hand. Yeah, they're just a real nuisance, pain in the neck. I do not like them at all. And I was wondering, why is that happening? Is this just I'm noticing it, or had this not used to happen? And I've wondered, my hypothesis is, perhaps this fashion that you don't discipline or punish your pets, you take a more restorative, pastoral approach to your dog, is resulting in a lot more badly behaved pets. And I suspect that might be the case. On my run today, a dog, it was with someone, but the dog ran straight at me. And if I hadn't stopped, I think I would have kicked the thing and sent it flying into the river. But I just about managed to stop in time and not kick it. But in doing that, I very nearly fell over. So I said to the owner, "Oh, come on, you've got to keep the dog under control." But as usual with dog owners, often they assume that you're going to love their dog as much as they do, and it's all going to be just lovely and fun. Anyway, I digress. Right, which other words shouldn't you use with respect to animals? You shouldn't use the word domestication. You should use the phrase non-human enslavement. So your pet dog is not so much a pet, it's a slave. You're enslaving it. Now, behind this animal rights ideology, one key figure is Professor Peter Singer, a so-called ethicist, and he's famous for saying that a newborn baby, human baby, is of less value than a cat, because a cat is more intelligent, more independent, more mobile, etc., etc. And here's something that Peter Singer wrote a few years ago. This is quite shocking. He said, "Perhaps like the ancient Greeks, we should have a ceremony a month after birth, at which the infant is admitted to the community. Before that time, infants would not be recognized as having the same right to life as older people. Such a date would still be early enough to ensure that the rights of all those who are self-aware are fully protected, but it will be late enough to detect most cases of severe and irreparable disability. There will be no pretense that any dramatic change had occurred in the nature of the infant at that time, but rather a recognition that this was a child who was loved and wanted by its parents or by others who would care for it." Right, first problem, it. You don't call an infant it, it's him or her. But that's published in the Spectator magazine in 1995. Even now, the Spectator magazine, I think, is very reluctant to allow straightforward pro-life arguments to be made in it. So that's what we're up against. That's the sort of devaluation of human life that is promoted by this sort of philosophy. So I believe there's something special about humans. And it's fascinating down in the Meadows in the park in Edinburgh just the other day. We had a board that said, "Are all lives equal, of equal value?" We had conversations with people. Some people said, yes, human rights, all lives are equally valuable. But then if you ask them about the unborn, maybe they need to go in a hurry. People say, no, they don't all have equal value. It depends on the age, intelligence, plans, usefulness. Depends if they're wanted. Depends how good they are in various ways, moral goodness. Then they start applying the same standards to animals as well. Some people applying the same standards to plants, bacteria. So you can say to people, if a building was on fire, who would you rescue? Your pet dog or a person? And, mixed responses to that. Now, listen to all of that. I'm just reminded, it contrasts with how clear I think my understanding of this matter is. Because an aspect of what I believe as a Christian is that there's a fundamental distinction between humans and animals. Humans have a distinct worth and value, dignity that is inherent and God-given. So I oppose steps to bring humans down to the level of animals, and I oppose steps to bring animals up to the level of humans. Now, other people might have other reasons for coming to that same conclusion. One major reason is intuition. I think our just conscience tells us that humans and animals are of absolutely hugely different worth. But I think if we can't defend our position, then it's going to erode and we will slide towards the sort of animal liberation mentality. Now, obviously, stopping animal welfare is probably the right term, and that's something that everyone should be behind. We don't want animals to suffer unnecessarily, want to be looked after well. That is all fine. But what we're talking about here in animal liberation is a very different thing than animal welfare. So the point of this bizarre show in Glasgow was if something's wrong for humans, it's wrong for animals. Or the corollary of that, if something's right for humans, it must be right for animals. So farms become centres of slavery, of forced labour, of confinement. I don't really see it that way. When I see a cow chewing the cud in the field, I don't think that cow actually had other plans for that day. And because it's confined in a field, had to just stand there eating the grass. You know, I really don't think that is the case. If you think about it, a dog, say, has puppies, and the owner of the dog might give some away, might sell some. That's absolutely fine. If you think humans are the same as animals, then you might think, oh, someone has babies. Well, maybe they could give them away or sell them or do what they like with them. That would be fine. With, say, a dog becomes very sick, they might take it to the vet. The vet might put it down, euthanize it, put it out of its misery. So if that's the way to deal with animals, surely that's the way to deal with people as well. That's the way to deal with Granny or whoever. So if animals are to be judged on their capabilities, so if cats are more valuable because they're more advanced or intelligent or whatever, then are humans going to be judged on the same capabilities? If we're animal liberation people, then yes. So looking at the fetus or the baby or disabled people, then their value doesn't seem to be that high. And this idea of friends, you can have human friends, you can have animal friends. It's really just the same, breaking down the barrier between them, seeing it as just on a continuum. Now, I think that's quite concerning. Okay? You can have an animal friend, you can have a relationship with a non-animal. I mean, where does that head? I mean, some of the issues we've been looking at recently, particularly with this book in a school in the Highlands, are encouraging children to absolutely think in that direction, which I think is very sinister indeed. Now, the accusation an animal rights person would make to me, they'd say you're a speciesist. They'd say you're a bigot, you're biased, you're prejudiced towards your own species. That's not fair. And I would say, yep, that's me. I am a speciesist. I am biased towards humans. I think they're more valuable than animals. There's not some sort of sliding scale where you go through different animals and just humans happen to be ahead in some sort of ways, so they may be slightly more valuable. It's not like that. There's a quantum leap between the value of any animal and the value of any human life. Human life has unique value and dignity, therefore is deserving of special treatment and care. Now, on this issue, the people on the other side, they know their arguments, they know the theory, and they will promote it time and time again. And if people on the other side, the people who do recognize the unique dignity of human life, if they can't reply very clearly, if they're a bit vague and woolly, can't quite put the finger on why they believe what they believe, then we're likely to slide in the direction of animal liberation. And the main problem of animal liberation is not so much the liberation of animals, it's the pulling down of the value of humans that is the issue. Now, in my experience, which people care the most about animals? Well, from what I see, it's farmers, pet owners, vets, and yet these are the very people that have been demonized by these campaigners. So, fellow speciesists, do come and gather at the Scottish Family Party Conference on the 9th of November in Glasgow. There are details below. Get your tickets right now and hope to see you there.